We all live by rules, right? Don't lie, work hard, follow the law. They're the mental shortcuts that kind of keep everything from falling apart. But what happens when a good rule, one you follow with the best of intentions, actually leads to a terrible outcome? That's the thinking trap we're going to pull apart today. You know, Aristotle was talking about this thousands of years ago. The ability to just look at a belief, maybe even one you hold dear, and really question it without immediately having to accept or reject it. That's not just some stuffy academic skill. It's the key, the essential tool for avoiding the very human error we're about to explore. And let's be honest, we need these rules. Can you even imagine trying to get through a single day without them? They're like the operating system running in the background of our minds. Look both ways before you cross the street. Be honest with your friends. They save us a ton of mental energy, and most of the time, they keep us safe. But here's the kicker. What happens when that trusted operating system has a bug? What happens when a good rule, applied blindly, creates a totally disastrous result? This is that critical moment where a sharp thinker knows the difference between a helpful guideline and a dangerous mental trap. Well, this exact error has a name: the accident fallacy. Sometimes it's called a sweeping generalization, and the name itself kind of gives away the whole mistake. It's when we accidentally apply a general rule to a very specific case where it just doesn't fit. So the rule itself isn't the problem here. The fallacy, the mistake, is all in the application. It's kind of like taking the perfectly good rule birds can fly and then arguing that a penguin must be able to fly too. I mean, the error isn't the rule. It's the failure to see the very, very obvious exception. So why do we even fall for this? Well, our brains are basically wired for efficiency. They just crave simplicity. A rule with no exceptions? Oh, that's clean, it's predictable, and it means less mental heavy lifting. So we cling to that simple rule, that feeling of order, even when reality is screaming at us that the situation is way more complicated. This slide just lays out the two paths so perfectly. On the left, you've got the fallacy. The rule is the rule, period. It's rigid, it's absolute, and it's completely blind to context. But on the right, you have rational thinking. Okay, the rule is a good default, but we've got to stay alert for exceptions. That tiny shift in thinking makes all the difference in the world. Okay, theory is one thing, but this fallacy really shows its power and its danger when we see it play out in the real world. So let's start with a bit of an ethical puzzle. Just think about this for a second. Is it possible that to achieve a greater good, some kind of harm is actually necessary? This question gets right to the very heart of the accident fallacy. Here's a simple, everyday example. The principle is a noble one, right? Never deliberately hurt another person. But when you apply it as an absolute, it leads to this absurd conclusion that a surgeon, whose entire job is to heal, is somehow doing something wrong. The mistake here is obvious, isn't it? It's classifying a surgeon's life-saving incision as hurting someone in the same way you'd hurt them in a fight. It completely ignores the context, the consent, the healing, the massive benefit, all of which creates a clear and necessary exception to the rule. That example was pretty clear, but the consequences were pretty personal. So what happens when applying this fallacy could lead to a genuine, bona fide disaster? Now look at this. The rule is one of the oldest in the book. Don't lie. But the situation is a life or death crisis. If you commit the fallacy, if you actually believe that rule is absolute and has zero exceptions, you tell the armed man exactly where his target is hiding. In this case, following the rule isn't moral. It's a catastrophic failure of reason. Okay, so we've seen how dangerous this trap can be. The good news is we can actually train ourselves to avoid it. And it's not about memorizing a huge list of exceptions. It's about developing a much more sophisticated way of thinking. This right here is the master skill. The goal isn't to become some cynic who rejects all rules. It's to be like an expert architect who doesn't just know the building code, but understands the deep structural principles behind the code. That's how you build something that actually stands the test of reality. And just to be perfectly clear, sometimes applying a general rule directly and forcefully is exactly the right thing to do. In this situation, there is no legitimate exception to even consider. This is not the accident fallacy. This is rational moral reasoning. The context confirms the rule, it doesn't challenge it. So here's a practical toolkit for you, a mental checklist to run before you apply a rule with absolute force. First, just pause and ask, what's the specific context here? Am I ignoring something crucial? Then go a little deeper. What's the principle this rule is trying to achieve? And finally, does blindly applying the rule here actually serve that principle? Or does it lead to an absurd or even harmful result? This is how you spot the exception that truly matters. So let's just pull back from the details for a second, because spotting this fallacy isn't just a party trick for winning arguments. It's really about a fundamental upgrade to your entire decision-making process. Look, anyone can memorize a set of rules. A computer can do that, right? Following its programming with flawless precision, but with zero understanding. That's rigid rule following. True competence is something else entirely. It's like the master craftsman who knows the rules, but also has feel, intuition, and wisdom. He knows when to adapt. And that's the ultimate goal. You know, a novice chess player only knows the rules, how the pieces move, but a grandmaster understands the principles of control, pressure, and timing. They know the rules so deeply, they instinctively know when a surprising rule-bending move is the absolute key to victory. So I'll leave you with a challenge. What is one unbreakable rule in your own life, in your career, your relationships, maybe your personal code, that might just need a second look? Is it possible there's an exception you've been refusing to see simply because the rule itself feels so safe and simple?